Is this on? Hi. Hi everyone. It's that time, so we should probably get started. Great. So, hi, I'm Laura. Thanks so much for having me along today. This is my third Drupal South and my second time speaking, so that's exciting. I'm from Wellington, New Zealand. I'm a digital designer, a Drupal site builder, and a front-end developer. I love science fiction, everything, books, TV, movies, typography, and I run the Wellington CSS meetup. And I also have clinical depression and generalized anxiety disorder. So, fair warning, I'm going to be talking about mental illness with a very good dose of humour, because I've not figured out how to talk about it while keeping a straight face. And I hope to share some of the lessons that I've learnt along the way, so you don't have to. But before I get into my story, I want to take a moment to talk about some of the facts of mental illness, because why is this an important topic to discuss at a tech conference? It's important because it simply affects so many people. 3 million Australians are currently living with some sort of mental disorder, whether it is depression, anxiety, or something else, and the numbers are only going up. Mental health doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care who you are or where you need to be. You can just be walking along, minding your own business, and wham, get hit right in the face with the SADs, as I call them sometimes. And mental illness still carries so much stigma. It can be hard to talk about, and it can be embarrassing. Another part to this is that it can also, there's still a lot of misinformation and really dumb ideas about mental health. There's this great online community on Reddit called Wow Thanks I'm Cured, which is a place where people, really talk about the really bad advice that they've been given, such as doing yoga, eating more vegetables, or just going outside. Because believe it or not, those things don't work. And I've got paper notes because I'm old school, meets new school. And what you might not know is that many illnesses like depression, anxiety, OCD aren't curable, but they are manageable. And although we don't fully understand what causes mental illness, we do know that it is a combination of nature and nurture. And research has shown that therapy in conjunction with medication is usually the most effective treatment. And one important myth that I'd like to squish right away is that medication can't simply make it all better. For one, it's not as simple as just popping a pill once a day, because you usually have to start with a really small dose and increase it over several weeks before you can even start seeing any results. And these are dangerous drugs, and they can actually make you feel much, much worse. So here's a list of some of the most common side effects of an antidepressant you've probably heard of, Prozac. And I think these on their own can sound quite scary, but that's not until we go into the list of not as common side effects that can lead to death. You're not hearing me wrong. Because medications for mental illness are still relatively new, they've only existed since about the 50s, it's not a perfect science, but when it works, it literally saves lives. So why is this important to discuss in tech? It's important because tech can be a really tough place to work if you have a mental illness. For anyone, really. Tech can be extremely high-pressured, extremely competitive, and we're the kings and queens of imposter syndrome. And we're told that in order to succeed in tech, you pretty much have to be a wizard. And that's a lot of pressure. In May, a survey showed that over 57% of tech employees said that they suffered from workplace burnout. So that's just when they're at the absolute end of their rope, but they keep going into their job because they have to. But if they could, they would stay home and recover. And this is from companies such as Twitch, Snapchat, Airbnb, Microsoft. It's the big ones. So that number is way too high for my liking. But thankfully, you don't have to have a stellar personality to become a tech whiz. Because we all know Mark Zuckerberg recently outed as a lizard person for selling people's personal information, yet he's been pretty successful. He's worth a cool $74 billion. I'm sure that number's gone up since I've looked that up as well. And if you think for a moment about how pop culture and the media portrays tech, these are the characters from one of my favourite shows, Silicon Valley. So it's no shade, I love the show, but they do a really good job of showing the different types of people that you might come across in tech, even though they are exaggerated. But none of them are perfect. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that tech attracts all sorts of people. But overall, I feel like tech is a great place for unconventional people working unconventionally. You can work remotely from anywhere in the world without ever having to meet your boss. And in general, I've found the tech community to be a really supportive place when you know where to look, like conferences like this and of course your local meetups. So why would anyone want to hear from me? Like, to put it lightly, I'm a bit of an expert. My whole life has been affected by mental illness. And from the get-go, my chances of being mentally sane were slim at best. Because, you see, my dad has depression, my uncle is autistic, my mum has bipolar disorder and had postnatal depression. So, genetic lottery really got me there. In doctors, thankfully my family has been very proactive in taking me to see doctors and specialists, but they've been saying I showed signs of sadness and anxiety since I was about 6 years old. And I didn't have very many friends until I was a teenager, because I was pretty weird. I mean, I still am. But I was lucky growing up because I had an amazing family to support me. My dad always told me that I could do anything, that I could be anything, do anything I wanted to do, even own a house, if I worked hard. But no one told me that I'd have to give up avocados to do it. Thankfully, this is a bit out of date now. This was peak avocado price in New Zealand. Thankfully, they're more levelled out, so I can start putting towards my bank house deposit again. So yeah, my dad was really great when I was growing up. He did this really useful thing where he just told me straight out, you know, you're different, and other kids may give you a hard time for it, and they may not understand you, but it's okay because that's on them, and that I just have to keep doing the best that I can. So I was around 15 when I came out as bi to my small group of friends in this very small town, traditional all-girls school. Did not go very well, because rumours spread around that place like wildfire. It was a small school, and I had random people coming up to me in the hallway asking, "Are you a lesbian?" No, half. And after a short time, the sad thing was that after a short time, the small group of friends that I'd confided in decided that they didn't want me to hang around them anymore, and I was told that I had to go find some new friends. So I pretty much lost every good friend that I had overnight, and it felt like my world had fallen apart. I was panicking. I didn't know what to do. I thought I wanted to die. I didn't talk to my family because it would mean having to come out to them too. And well, it didn't go so well the first time. But what I did do was call a helpline, one of the free 0800 numbers in New Zealand. And they did a really good job of talking me down and helping me to see the bigger picture. Because eventually I was able to start making new friends that didn't care, who were far more accepting, and who I'm still friends with now. But it really had an effect on me. I didn't come out to my dad until last year, but I did. And I need to mention my sexuality because my LGBT peeps are twice as likely to attempt suicide than their hetero peers. And that's really not good enough. But moving on. So throughout the rest of high school, I put a lot of pressure on myself to succeed because I've found out that I have high functioning depression and anxiety. And that's not like a better level of those things. What it means is that my illness tells me that I'm worthless, but also tells me that I have to go and achieve these amazing things and set really unrealistic expectations for myself, like speaking at conferences. My brain tells me that failure is not an option. So I went and told my school counsellor that I was feeling down, and she referred me to a psychologist at the hospital, and I would go to see her once a week after school, and it helped for a while. So, throughout the rest of high school, I spent a lot of time on my own, being an only child, and on the internet, on terrible dial-up internet. But I found a lot of solace there because there were so many different types of people that I'd not had a chance to meet in my small town in New Zealand. And I made small websites to host comics my friends and I had made. I customised my online profiles using CSS that I'd copy-pasted from other people's pages. I finished high school. I thought I wanted to be a graphic designer, and I went to university 300 kilometres away from my family. And alongside the usual graphic design papers, I took some digital papers because they looked really fun, and I learned the basics of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. They also taught us Flash as early as, about 8 years ago. But getting by at uni meant studying for about 12 hours a day and working a part-time job at JCar Electronics on the weekends. So working 7 days a week. Depression shows up again. I didn't tell my family, but I went to the doctors. For the first time in my life, I tried antidepressants, and they made me want to kill myself. So I stopped taking them pretty soon. After a lot of perseverance and talking to my local doctor, I managed to get a proper psych evaluation through the New Zealand healthcare system, and I was referred to a psychologist. Now, after about 4 sessions, this woman has the guts to tell me, "Oh, you're not that bad. It's not that bad. I mean, I have so many more patients who are far worse than you. You're basically wasting my time." I did not see her again after that, but I managed to graduate uni with first-class honours. And I was really scared after graduating, because up until this point, everything had been laid out for me. You go to school, you go to university, you get a job. But when I thought about a 9-to-5 job with the same pressures of university, I was absolutely mortified. And so instead of going to get one of those jobs, I went into business with one of my friends, a social enterprise called Design Gel. And we did small jobs for local businesses, and lots of local businesses wanted websites. So I learned how to use WordPress, and I made WordPress sites for a while. But I am not built for the freelance life. I had major imposter syndrome. The anxiety of not knowing where the next job would come from was so huge and overwhelming that in the end I quit to work in retail in a bookshop. It was fun. When I was working in the bookshop, I would often compare myself to my friends from uni. Some had moved overseas, won all these prestigious design awards, got married, started having families, and I would compare myself to them, sitting in my lowly retail job, and I would feel totally inadequate. But one day, I get an email from someone I've never heard of, X equals, saying that they had heard through the grapevine that I was pretty good at CSS, and they asked me to come in part-time. Oh, what a change. It's a good one. So every Friday I would go into this new job and I would learn something about the web. And I would get frustrated and I would make mistakes. I would make entire sites go down. It's happened more than once. But sometimes I would win, and that felt great. And over the next 2 years, I reduced my hours working in the bookshop so I could do more web development. But I was really afraid to quit what I considered my day job. I was worried that my exciting new career in tech wouldn't work out, that I wouldn't be good enough, that I would be a failure and have to go move back in with my dad. But I loved working there. I loved learning new things, thinking creatively, and making things work. But most of all, I love writing CSS. I'm not afraid to say it. So eventually I took the plunge and quit my bookshop job and became full-time at X equals about 2 years ago. And that's where I've been ever since. So since starting at X equals, I've been able to work on projects for a bunch of New Zealand government and non-profit agencies like the RSA, the Department of Conservation, the New Zealand Nutrition Foundation, Birthright, and these are all clients that I'm so proud to have. And I think if you were to tell 17-year-old me what I'd be doing at 27, I would just laugh in your face. I wouldn't believe you. Because when I was 27, the only thing that I aspired to, when I was 17, I just aspired to not being a failure. I didn't know what that meant. I just know that I couldn't be a failure. So I feel like I'm doing pretty well. And I feel incredibly lucky to have been given the opportunity to work with X equals, who have just been some of the most encouraging, genuine, and understanding people to work with that I've ever met. Now, I'm seeing a doctor that I like. I'm on a new antidepressant after trying several that didn't work, and anti-anxiety medication that seems to be helping. And for the most part, I'm happy. I have good friends, a good job, and a family that loves me. But it's not all rosy, because, like I've said before, sometimes just when you think you have it beat, depression can come cold calling at your door out of the blue. There are still days when I feel depressed, and certain situations are always going to make me feel anxious. Like, I run the CSS meetup every month, still get nervous. It's going on 2 years now. So this is a broad overview of what a bad day for me might look like, and it's absolutely not going to be the same for everyone. I'll have thoughts like, I'm not good enough for this job, for my friends, for the house I live in, that no one likes me, and I definitely shouldn't reach out and talk to them, and that I'm a burden to everyone around me. And these kinds of thoughts just kind of go round and round and round in your head until it's really hard to think of anything else, which is what I call them obsessive thought spirals. But for me, because I have anxiety, a lot of it is so much more than just emotional and feelings. It often involves behaviours that make things a lot worse. So I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm very fidgety. I move around, I play with my hands. Kind of rolls into this joke about how bisexual people cannot sit on chairs well. And so I'm that person in the meeting who's crawling like over their chair, can't sit still. I still get panic attacks sometimes, from time to time. Part of the anxiety is I'll often not realise that I've been clenching my teeth for a long time. Dentists hate me. Have a lot of nightmares, and sometimes if things are really bad, even if people reach out to me, I can find it very difficult to reply. But it's definitely not every day, and those days are becoming much fewer and far between. So, for friends and co-workers, what can you do? The sad thing is there is no one-size-fits-all approach, but when in doubt, ask. because everyone is going to have different things that they're comfortable talking about or not. But in general, I think it should be okay to ask questions, because mental health shouldn't be treated any differently to any other illness. And while you care if your friends are sick, and it's normal to be concerned, and ask how you can help. But be prepared that they may not want to talk to you, and it's probably absolutely nothing to do with you. But if you just let them know that you've noticed that they're maybe not feeling themselves, and that you're there to listen if they want to talk, that can just mean the world. So how does this look in terms of like a workplace culture? My boss's favourite way to describe this is staunchly defending each other's well-being. And basically it just means you give a shit about each other. We all work quite short weeks. We've found the ideal is somewhere between 25-35 hours. You can come in when you want, reasonably, scheduling around meetings and that type of thing. But if you don't have anything on until the afternoon, you can have a sleep in if you need it. We have regular catch-ups, not only with me and my boss, but as a whole team. And we encourage each other to take days off before we get completely burnt out. And in general, we just communicate with each other. And I feel the support from them to let them know if I'm not really having a good day. And I thank them for being there to support me. So all of this comes together to be a really big contributor to my success and happiness at work and home. And it's important because without X equals, I'm not sure if I'd even be in tech right now. And I wonder how many more people like me might be in tech if more jobs looked like mine. And here's some practical advice, because there's always more work to do, but you don't have to work long hours. This is from a great little blog post by Itamar Turner-Troring on his blog Code Without Rules. So it comes with very practical advice that any company, no matter your size, can start putting into place right now. And it basically just comes down to always padding your estimates. And so let's say if you think a project is going to take about 4 months, you tell the client 6. You don't tell them, but we could do it sooner. You tell them it's going to take at least 6. Internally, you still try and do that project in 4, because having that leeway to then go and work on something else, whether that's something internal, external, it's really just going to reduce stress. And then there's always the thing of MVP, minimal viable product. And so that's having a list of everything that you need to do, ordering it from most important have to have to least important nice to have. And when time runs out, you drop the things at the bottom of the list. And that's as simple as it is. So some great advice on there. And I will have these slides posted on my Twitter at the end of the talk. But I feel the best thing that you can do at work is talk about your mental health to each other. Because the more we talk about it, the less awkward it becomes. This is the 3rd time I've done this talk, and believe me, it really does. It can be scary in the beginning, but it just gets easier over time. So we've talked about from an organisational point of view what you can do, and this is more on a personal level what you can do. Because I like to have a list of these things that I can do when times are tough, because it can be really hard to think of them in that moment. So my close friends and family are pretty much everything to me, and I do have to remind myself that I can reach out to them if things are tough. Pretty simple one, don't waste time on bullies, not worth it. There are so many more people in the world who will think you're awesome. Go to the doctor regularly and find the time to find a good one, even if it means having to go to every single doctor in your city. Medication can help. Exercise definitely helps, and that's whether you're going for a walk, going to the gym, doing some sports, doing some yoga, just whatever is good for you. And TV and movies are a great distraction. And I asked my therapist this one time, is it okay to use distractions? She's like, yeah. Oh, great. Sometimes it's hard whether you're trying to just distract yourself is a healthy coping mechanism. It's when you do it too often that it can become a problem. And I have a lot of hobbies that I love, like sewing, painting, and baking. And I've recently got into zine making. I know Wellington and Melbourne both have big zine communities. And basically, if I stop doing some of these things, I know that maybe something isn't quite right. And another one of my top hints is to keep a stash of tissues and your most important medications, maybe some painkillers in your bag, or just in your desk drawer at work. I've also found that tracking your mood is a really good way to get a bigger picture on things, because life is full of ups and downs. And it's when you're in a really low moment that it can feel like you've never had a good day. So being able to look back and see proof that, I actually had a good day last week, can be really helpful. Because the thing about emotions and feelings is that they're not permanent and they won't last forever. So this is from a great app called Dailyo. They've got a freemium service, but it's only like $3, so check it out. It sends you a little reminder every day to add a mood. But you can always just go low tech and keep notes in a book. And then we've got some little exercises. And this is for if shit really hits the fan, like you're having a bit of a meltdown, what can I do? These are just some things that I've found work for me that I keep coming back to again and again. I know it can be a bit of a buzzword, but mindfulness is actually a really good way to reconnect with the present moment if you're stuck in your thoughts somewhere else far away. Whether it's that you're worried about something that is coming up or something that's happened, it's a really good way to bring yourself back to the present moment. And it's just as simple as finding a quiet spot and thinking about and connecting with all the points on your body. And an easy way to do that is to think about where they connect with the ground. And another helpful tip is to tense all the muscles in your body and release them, because that way you can kind of release tension you might not have even known that you were holding. The next one is great if you're having a panic attack. It's just a simple breathing exercise. I was wondering if we would like to do one together. Very simple. You just breathe in for 4, hold it for 7, and then out through your mouth for 8. So everyone with me, go exhale, and then in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How does that feel? Good. And let me tell you that holding for 7, if you're having a panic attack, can just seem impossible, especially if you're hyperventilating, stuff like that. But once you've gone through it, even maybe 3 times, you'll find it's actually not that hard. And these numbers aren't special. You can adjust them to suit yourself. And these 2 are particularly good for those of us who have anxiety, because they are about reducing those physical symptoms of anxiety, like that tightness in your chest. Okay. So this last one, I have a little video. So it's just about picturing your perfect spot in the world. It is better if it is a real place, but it doesn't have to be. It can be imaginary. But it's just about focusing on the 5 senses in that place and imagining yourself there. So while the other 2 are about coming into the present moment, this one's more about maybe escaping a moment. So for me, my safe space is the beach, where I grew up in Napier. Now, this is not a nice beach. It is a very rocky, dangerous beach. You can't swim. There are signs saying, please don't swim, you will drown. Because the ocean pretty much, there's the sand, pebbles, and it goes right down, and it doesn't go back up for a long time. But it's great for sitting and thinking, because there's usually no one around. So this is where I go if I need to have a safe space moment. Oh, and it sounds nice. Too much. So in this place, obviously the biggest one is the sound of the waves. A little bit too sound. You've got the sound of the waves crashing, louder as they crash, and then it quietly flows back out. I might hear some birds, because right there on the right is Cape Kidnappers, where there's one of the world's largest gannet colonies. So we've often got birds flying around. There's a little bit of a boardwalk and a bike trail behind me, so I might hear people, might hear someone's dog. And then obviously I can probably smell the sea salt in the air. And if I open my mouth, I might even be able to taste it. What have I missed one? And I can feel the hard rocky pebbles underneath me. Oh, I feel so zen already. So that's a good one. If you want this as your safe space, it's okay. I'm sharing is fine. When I share the slides, you can look at you can find the video. There's also this app, what's it called? If you want to replicate some of the sounds, this is an app called Sleepo. Let me change colours. There you go. So they have a bunch of different sounds, like rain sounds, nature sounds, city sounds, zen sounds. So that's the kind of thing that can be useful if you're in a busy office and you need to kind of just get away for a few minutes. So talking about getting away, because sometimes when I'm feeling bad, the most useful thing is to just not feel so alone. This is why it's so important that we talk about these things, because representation matters. I do feel less alone when I read a book about someone like me, or watch a TV show or a movie. I just feel less weird. So here's a short list of stuff that helps in that regard, and I have a list of these on my website, which is lauramunro.nz, which I'll have up at the end. This one. But for when good TV isn't enough, there are so many more resources out there that can help. Help is available if you ask for it. There is so much help and in so many different formats. Whether it is a phone line, text messaging, finding a doctor, finding an online therapy course, finding a group therapy course, there really is something for everyone. You do not have to suffer alone and just pull up your socks and deal with it. But the thing is, you do have to ask, and you may have to ask more than once. So for those of you like me with depression, anxiety, or any other type of mental illness, I hope this talk has strengthened your resolve to do whatever the fuck it is that you want to do. And for friends, co-workers, and those in management, I hope that from this talk you can take away some strategies and resources and a better understanding of what it's like to be me. Now, that's the end of my talk, but I did want to quickly plug the theme that we've been working on. It's a Drupal theme. It's on Drupal.org. It's called Bones. It's very quick. Look at that, 100% performance. Would you believe it? CSS is 19 kilobytes. Bootstrap over a meg, forget about it. Ignore it. This is your go-to. You can have a look at the demo at bones.xequals.co.nz. that's my plug. So I think we've definitely got some time for questions. I didn't realise I would have such a long slot. That's it. Thank you for listening. Do we have any questions? Yes, hi.
I just wanted to actually say thank you very much for giving this talk. I think it was really, really good. I myself suffer very, very high levels of generalised anxiety disorder myself.
I feel you.
Comorbid with a bunch of other things that I could sit here and rattle off for quite a while. I think it was really, really good. I loved how you addressed the clenching of the teeth. I am about this far away from having worn down my back teeth because it's just a constant, can sometimes be very constant. And it's actually quite interesting because it's not until later in life I ever realised that's how much I was doing it. It's really good to see this talk, and I think I'm glad that you're giving it and have given it before, because we don't really talk about this a lot. In some, open source was always a place that for me was to put it in the words of someone in the Drupal community who we worked with, open source, you don't need to be socially awkward to work here, but it sure does help. So I think for me, like, that's where I found, the main help within open source. But I want to know, with your anxiety disorder, one thing that I find extremely hard is when there is issues within the community, or when you do find yourself on the end of a large troll list and things like that. And I just want to know how you've managed, if you've had any of those experiences, or any tips you have on that.
I think probably if I boil it down to one thing, it's having a single person that you can rely on to talk to, that you feel comfortable enough to say, hey, do you mind if I give you a call if, I'm having a real bad day? And then being able to call them and just say, hey, I'm having a real shit day, this really sucks, can you just talk to me for a few minutes? It can turn into a few hours sometimes. If I boil it down to one thing, I think that would be it for me. Thank you very much. Hi.
Has your workplace always been aware and accepting of?
Not always aware, but always accepting. Yeah, because I think obviously it's not something that you probably want to disclose at, say, like an interview or on your first day. And I don't necessarily think you should have to either. But definitely, especially once I was having a bad day, just saying, I need to take a me day. And being responded to with kindness and compassion. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Hi.
So you said that they weren't aware when you started. Had they already implemented many of those things that you mentioned, like the short working week and the staunchly defending each other's well-being?
Yes.
Had they already implemented that before you got there? Or
yes.
As a response, or with you?
I think we've definitely kind of amped up those things over the time that I've been there, obviously because I encourage it, and we're quite a small team, so it's easy for us. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. But yes, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to start working for them in the first place, was that I did find that it was a friendly, low-stress environment that I could slot into quite easily. And I think you do get a feel for the culture and the people in quite a short amount of time. So that is at least something that you can kind of figure out quite soon on. All good. Any other questions, or shall we take an early lunch? No, that looks like it's it. Okay, thank you very much. you.